All right, everybody, welcome back to Lore Lords episode 8, Mask On, Mask Off. We're heading back to our favorite land of the Triforce, Master Sword, Fairies, and Magic. That's right, it's the Legend of Zelda once again.
Not Squid Game yet.
Not Squid Game. No, I've stopped asking at this point. No, I appreciate that. You're learning. Yeah, I'm trying to be a good MC. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. But that's right. Today we're talking about Majora's Mask. Specifically, my favorite Zelda game of all time. I get to gush about it for an hour plus. So I am excited to do that. And we're going to get started by actually talking about, very simply, there was a theory once upon a time that the land in which Majora's Mask takes place, the land of Termina, was in Link's head, similar to the island that you go and adventure in Link's Awakening, which is, in fact, a subconscious, wacky acid trip of a video game. But it is really good.
Which I don't get, because he never... if you end Ocarina and you begin Majora, there's no... Mm-hmm. He doesn't go to sleep.
No, the idea is that at the very beginning you fall down a hole, and then you start
bonk yourself,
and you start seeing visions and stuff. That's when you're going to another world, and that's you transforming into that's you having a curse put on you. That's and you're having visions because again you're there's a lot of that. We'll talk about it, but that's kind of a good way to start though. Is that so? At the very end of Ocarina of Time, spoiler alert, MJ. After you become a kid again, Navi, your close companion for what was probably at least a few years, goes and flies off. And you part ways with your companion Navi. And
pretty much your only friend.
Yeah, basically the only person you actually had the time to get to know. You got to know Malin a little bit, obviously Saria, but, things happened to her. Yeesh. And then obviously Zelda's Princess Zelda, and the only capacity you're allowed to see her is, as her guard. Which actually Link, I think it is canonized now that Link becomes Zelda's bodyguard when he gets older. But he can't, but they don't ever have a romance or anything because he's not allowed to. So there's never anything like that. So Link, by the way, fun fact, Ocarina of Time, Link basically fades away into obscurity. It's really sad. He goes on one of the most grand adventures of any Link, and he just disappears.
Because no one remembers, but that's another story.
Yeah, that's a different story. But in this one, Link decides, you know what, I'm going to see if I can find my friend again, and I'm going to go off. And where do fairies go and hang out where they are safe and typically unharmed? The Lost Woods, of course. That's where they go. They go to the woods. Fairies are safe in the woods. So Link's well, I guess I can return to the Lost Woods. I know my way around there. Fun fact, because you explore a lot. So, it's hard to know your way around there, but if you're Link, you do. So he goes his way there, and he never finds her, and he just keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the woods. But little does he know, he's actually being followed by somebody called the Happy Mask Shop Salesman. And that's all. You never actually learn his name. That's what he is. He's the Happy Mask Shop Salesman.
He's a very calm and comforting and loved man.
Oh, yeah, he's not creepy at all.
Nope.
If you want to do a quick Google search and try to pull up a picture of him and just show people. But anyway, in Ocarina of Time, he is but a humble small business owner, simply trying to spread the joy and love of masks. And in Ocarina of Time, you do basically what is a fetch quest kind of thing, and trade quest more actually, where you collect masks and trade them for new ones. And at the very end, you are rewarded with a Goron mask, a Zora mask, yes, all of these things. And I believe you also get a Gerudo mask as well, which looks horrifying. So anyway, so they get to... so in that game, though, he doesn't really play a big role or anything. Yep. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, he doesn't really play a big role. However, he is, again, this kind of eerie person who does speak, even in Ocarina of Time, speaks very whimsically. He speaks very sort of like sing-songy. He'll never shoot it straight, you know what I mean? Like, he very, very rarely shoots straight at you. He'll never, he kind of dances around everything he talks about. And he follows you. But while he's on his journey, he gets knocked the fuck out by a Skull Kid, who's a mischievous creature of the forest, and he gets his pack looted. And in that pack is a mask known as Majora's Mask. Now, no one knew too much about it, and neither did the Happy Mask Shop salesman himself. But boy, howdy did he have an education pretty quick on what mask. All anyone really knew about Majora's Mask before the events of Majora's Mask was that it's a dark mask. It was used for tribal rituals. It's spooky. So he knew that, but he didn't know to necessarily what context until everything started to unfold. He's a smart man, but he learns things. He's flawed. He's clearly. So after the Skull Kid puts on Majora's Mask, he becomes possessed, and then becomes a little bit more than just kind of chaotic neutral. Because think of Skull Kids as chaotic neutral. They're not evil. They like their friends. If you do nice things for them, they'll do nice things for you. But if they're in the right mood, they'll steal your shit while you sleep. They'll bonk you on the head and knock you out for a couple hours. They won't kill you. They won't try to do anything too much. They hate adults, though. They hate adults. They hate them. They do attack adults. In Ocarina of Time, if you go into the Lost Woods and confront Skull Kids as an adult, you are going to be attacked. And this is... that's a Skull Kid. But and so they're not... Skull Kids, again, they're not evil. They're just... But when Skull Kid puts on Majora's Mask, he shifts his alignment. There's an alignment shift that takes place. And he finds you, a child, wandering the woods. And instead of course, he knocks you the fuck out. He and his friends knock you the hell out. He steals your Ocarina of Time, the magical Ocarina, the one that helped save Hyrule in the previous game. He steals it, and your horse, Epona, and you try to go on this epic chase through the Lost Woods, in which case, of course, the Skull Kid, again, no one knows the Lost Woods better than a Skull Kid. You're never going to find him. He goes to what is the secret underground entrance to basically what is Termina. Because now this is what we're going to end up talking about, it is more theorized, and in fact, including a little bit, it's not quite canonized, but it's basically canonized that Termina is a land to like the far west of Hyrule. And if you look at a lot of maps of Hyrule, you can see that oceans are usually depicted at the south of Hyrule and the north. Not necessarily on the east or west.
Right.
Sometimes on the east. But usually there is. So there's a lot to assume that there's land to the east or west. And Termina, the ocean is in the west. So you can surmise that basically Termina is a far western country. And to dive in the culture of Termina a little bit, now that we've kind of had our little bit of story, I just basically told you the prologue to Majora's Mask when. The Skull Kid finds the mask, and then the Skull Kid steals your horse, your Ocarina, and he leads you to the underground pass and transforms you into a Deku Scrub and curses you, and that's where he leaves you. Because he basically thinks you're gonna... He also, by the way, the Skull Kid and Majora's Mask, they think you're just gonna die as a Deku Scrub in that hole that you fall in at the very beginning of the game. They're just like, all right, rotten hell, bitch, see ya. Like, that's literally what he does. He literally laughs and leaves you alone. He has no idea who you are. Like, even though, like, he kind of actually does. The Skull Kid does. You actually meet him, and it's actually canon that you meet this Skull Kid in Ocarina of Time. So it's very interesting that the Skull Kid kind of is doing this to you. This is why, something's going on, and that mask is obviously very eerie and is an obvious giveaway. Anyway, so so at that point, as Deku Link, you make your way to through this underground pass, and you pop out in Termina. And in Termina is a different total country altogether from Hyrule, whereas Hyrule is a kingdom. They have a royal family. They have, very classic European-style wars between their provinces and factions, and, very much like that. Termina is kind of like a merchant republic in a way, a trade republic, a trade community, in fact, wherein everybody who lives in Termina has kind of an agreement. And so in the center area in Termina where you pop out in is called Clocktown. Clocktown is basically where the humans or Hylians or whatever you would like to call them in this case, Terminians.
Termites.
All right, where the termites live. Clocktown is where the termites live, and they're really friendly group of people. They love partying. Actually, they work hard and they party harder. And they have an entire section of the city, West Clocktown, that is dedicated to trade and commerce. There's tons of tons of different markets. There's an obscure nighttime only shop. There's a merchant's shop. There's a whole bomb shop. There's a sword shop where you can learn how to do weapons. There's a post office. There's a gambling center. You can gamble. And it's also surmised too that this I just stabbed myself with a pencil. Ow. It also is surmised that, in these games, these cities are much bigger in real life. Like, you have to imagine that Nintendo 64 couldn't really fully imagine. So imagine just this massive market district. And so you actually appear, though, in Southern Clocktown. Now, what is Southern Clocktown used for? Mostly a meeting area, most of the time. It doesn't really have anything adjacent to it except the laundry pool, where obviously you can go and do your laundry in fresh, clean water. And there's just kind of nothing really going on there. However, South Clocktown is also the main plaza for festivals, particularly the Festival of Time. And you conveniently show up in Termina 3 days before the Festival of Time. Wow, that's awesome. Anyway, so you show up, and as the hero of time, wink, wink, there's some stuff here. And so there's a lot going on. People are building this gigantic tower in the center of South Clocktown. There's a lot going on, and that's how the game kind of starts. But to talk more about the country some. So in the west by the beaches, I mentioned the beach. Oh yeah, definitely bring up the map. Oh, that's the good one. That's a good one to bring up. So from the west, you can see the beaches. So from there you can imagine the Zora. That's Zora Hall is right there. So that's where the Zoras live in this area. They actually participate in this trade community. They bring fish and other seafoods and resources from the ocean, such as seaweeds and clams and shells and all sorts of materials and minerals that you can get from the ocean. They bring those to Clocktown and offer the trade, whereas the Clocktown people can offer their food, such as, they got like Clocktown. It's surmised that North Clocktown and outside of Clocktown there are farms. They're surmised, in a more lore-built area. So they have like vegetable-type foods, you know what I mean, and such. In the northern region of Termina is Snowhead and the Goron Shrine, as you can see, there's a Goron city there. And there's where Gorons live. And they also are known to participate in the same trade, and same with the Deku in the south. However, it is known that the Deku are a little bit, what's the better word? Racist. In this game. They're very arrogant in this game. The Deku are very, very arrogant. And
this guy's racist?
No, not you. That's you. You basically go into all these roles, actually. Because in the game, as for those who don't know, you as Link don many masks. You become a Deku, a Zora, and a Goron. So you get to immerse yourself into these different cultures, which is kind of cool. And this is how you can learn about these cultures. So, fun fact, though, the Deku do participate in the trade. However, it is a little bit reluctantly. And and I'm sure you all noticed that there's a land to the east, Ikana Valley and Stone Towers. We'll get to that. But
it's not important. It's not a big deal. Don't worry about it. We'll get to that.
It might be the reason all of this is a big deal. But
don't worry about it. We'll get to it soon.
But don't worry about it. But so anyway, all of these four powerful and individual cultures work together to share their abundant resources with one another, so that they all can thrive and enjoy. And again, the Deku, they're a little bit elitist. They're kind of think of very monarch, like kind of like Hyrule itself. It's like a very monarchy based thing. They actually have a king. They subjects, that kind of thing. So they have that arrogance of, we are the mighty Deku kingdom. We are blah 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 blah. And that's their kind of attitude, very pretentious. Think of it that way. But again, they're Deku, and if you know anything about Deku and Zelda, they're very simple creatures. They're very kind of instinctual. We live to survive. But this is to say that the Deku Kingdom is kind of the evolution of the Deku, where they got more organized. So this is so the Deku in this section of the world actually was allowed to evolve better than in Hyrule, where it's assumed that the Hylians actually slaughtered and pushed the Deku into the forest. Because remember, in Hyrule, it's still similar, but the only reason why the Zora and the Goron still exist in Hyrule is because they're just as powerful, if not more powerful, than the Hylians. So that's why. That's why they still exist in great numbers in their cultures are thriving in Hyrule, whereas the Deku culture in Hyrule is not thriving at all. They have merchants that are basically just completely scattered around that, again, are very violent. The merchants will literally attack you upon seeing you before they'll offer any sort of deal with you. The red Deku in Hyrule are just straight out fucking mean. They just want to hurt you, whereas in this one, they're not. They're civil. They are civil. They will talk to you. They're racist as hell, and they don't let anybody in except the Deku themselves. But they're civil. So it just goes to show you that in different ways, this country allowed the Deku to grow in a different way. Going to the Zoras in this world, the Zoras are actually kind of hippies. They're very laid back.
They're the best. They're probably the best depiction of Zora ever.
I agree. I think so too. I think the Zoras in Majora's Mask are probably my favorite. They're kind of hippie-ish. They're very powerful, however. There are Zora monk warriors that are implied, and also it's also implied that the Zora are aware of and more have a direct connection with Hyrule because of the fact that they have trade, ocean trade. So it is assumed that this is theory. This part isn't canonized necessarily, but it is theorized that the Zora of Zora Hall of Majora's Mask do know and will trade with the Zora from the Zora's domain in Hyrule. So fun fact. The Zora, by the way, are the elves kind of the universe of Hyrule, where the Zelda universe, where they're very wise, they're very intelligent, and they're very enlightened, and that is no exception to these ones. I called them hippie-ish, but that's because they live on arguably one of the most beautiful oceans and on the beautiful beaches in Zelda lore, because for 64 graphics, it still looks very cozy and really chill there. They literally live and hang out with beavers. That is canon. They have enlightened beaver friends that race them from time to time. However, the Zoras they're musicians. Most of them are musicians by trade. They are entertainers. They go around to Hyrule, to Deku, they go to Snowhead, they go to Clocktown, and they perform music. There is a famous band there called the Indogogos, which is great, by the way. And they go around and tour, and they're fantastic. And you actually become the guitar player of that band in the game, which is something that I love a lot, obviously, for obvious reasons. And so, and again, they're very hippie-ish because they believe in taking although the Zoras do work hard, they do believe in taking their time. They believe in passion and love and romance. And they're very, very much about that. Because the story that you meet Macau or Michael, the Zora man that you become, the Zora warrior, he actually is it's a love story that you fall into, which it's actually a tragic love story because he's dying. He and his lover they lost their eggs. Basically, their eggs were kidnapped, and he went to go rescue their eggs for their babies. And he was then basically brutally massacred by pirates and thrown into the water, and he drifted ashore, and you basically put his bottle to rest.
Like a
MJ.
fish.
Oh, yeah, you've actually seen this, MJ. Yeah, like a fish. You do the Song of Healing, and Michael, or Macau.
I've always called him Mike.
Mike, yeah. Yeah, we'll call him Mike. I think it's Macau, or Maku or something. We'll call him Mike. But that's where, anyway, you put Mike's soul to rest into the mask, and you become him. But anyway, so the Zoras, again, they're very hippie-ish, they're very chill, they're very whatever, they're lovers, they love everything, and they're passionate, and that makes them very powerful, because bear in mind, they're still Zoras, which means they're incredibly intelligent. But like the Zoras in Hyrule kind of would scoff at them a little bit because of their laid-back nature, because those Zoras in Hyrule are very elitist. They're very much like, the wise and powerful Zora. Why are you allowed here? Kind of thing.
Why are you disturbing me?
Yeah, where the Zoras in Hyrule are like, yo, dude, you want to come by and
come smoke some seaweed?
Yeah, seriously. That's very much like them. And now let's go to the north and talk to the Gorons. The Gorons are actually kind of the same as the ones in Hyrule. This is probably the closest culture that is mirrored for their Hyrule companions. They are a patriarchal society. They believe in strength basically above all, but they're gentle at heart because their intentions are always that of fun. They have Goron races, for fuck's sake. It's a great time. They do have a little bit more fun, I guess, maybe than the Gorons in Hyrule, but that just might be because they have such a great economy because everybody's so fruitful in shares between Clocktown and everything. So the Gorons are wonderful. Again, though, they have their religious practices. They go up to Snowhead Temple. That's where they go to do their Goron religious stuff. But by Goron's beard.
They're Goron women.
I actually don't know.
Or are they a monogendered species?
I think they're monogendered.
I think they are too. I like to think that way. Because we never see them. And at this point, we've seen girl Dekus. We've seen girl Zoras.
Yep.
I think we can just assume they're monogendered. There's no boy or girl Goron.
Yeah, they're just because they don't speak of romantic love ever. They've literally never spoken of romantic love. They speak of brotherly love and family love,
and their love of rocks.
And yes, they love eating rocks, especially volcanic rocks. Best kind, best flavor, baby. They got a little bit of kick, And then from Dodongo's Cavern, I've heard those delicacy.
Yeah, they got that red crystal inside for that flavor.
Oof, that lick. Anyway, give me them magma rocks. But so basically, again, most of the time, these cultures live in harmony. However, when you arrive in Termina, it is surmised that the Skull Kid wearing Majora's Mask has been there for actually possibly even a few days before you showed up, by the way. People don't talk about this, and again, it's also theory, not necessarily canon, but it is like that all the time you're spent underground trying to make your way to Termina, basically, at the very, very beginning of the game before you actually pop out in Termina. It's surmised that you're there for like a couple days even. So Skull Kid and Majora's Mask were able to cause some chaos in that time. What did they do? Well, they Majora's Mask, because remember, it's not really so much Skull Kid at this point, it's more the Mask doing this. Majora's Mask poisoned the water down at Woodfall, so the Deku immediately closed their borders and was just like, okay, we're blaming Clocktown, the Zoras, the Gorons. It's one of these motherfuckers. They did it. So they close their things off. The Great Bay becomes infested with murkier water. Bear in mind, it's an ocean, so it's salt water. That murkier water is starting to get a little less salty, so a lot of things are dying. Like, the fish is becoming less abundant with fish. It's harder to mate and lay healthy eggs. And then up north, Snowhead, it's caught in an endless winter cycle. It can't end. Snowhead, although it is in the mountains, it's not supposed to be endless winter. It's kind of like Maine, where it's like, oh, in the summer it's really nice. It's kind of hot actually, but then, in the winter it snows. That's what it's supposed to be. It's not necessarily like Snow Peak in Twilight Princess, which is really high mountains. In Twilight Princess, those mountains are really up there.
It's supposed to just have maybe the peaks of the mountain are snowy, not the entire area.
Yeah, Snowhead, Goron Shrine, it's more like, it's like a low route mountain range. It's not the Rocky Mountains, it's more like the Appalachians. It's not super big, but it's big. And it's also, again, theorized that these mountains connect to the mountains in Hyrule if you keep going to eventually hit Snow Peak and so forth. So, fun fact there, too. Anyway, So, and up there at Caught in an Endless Winter, where again, the Gorons can't even travel outside the Goron Shrine without freezing. So they can't even get to the Goron. Like, there's actually a small village in Snowhead, fun fact. There's a Snowhead village. In the Majora's Mask, there's only one house. It's a blacksmith.
Yeah.
But, again, it's theorized that if it's a village, there's theoretically supposed to be more houses and people that live there.
There should be villagers.
Yes, there should be some villagers there. So there
Otherwise, it'd be the blacksmith shop down the road.
Yeah, exactly. And also being like, why the hell would you live up there by yourself? You're the only human. With your weird, gigantic brother.
Is he a human?
Weird. I think so. I think they're brothers. Kabora and Gabora? Yeah. But I think that's their names. But Kabora is the brains. Gabora is the bronze. But because I think that the blacksmith's been in their family for like generations and stuff. So anyway, that's the only thing. But they can barely even get there. They can barely get to the village without freezing to death. So there's no way that they can get all the way down to Clocktown to make their trades. Because they arguably have the best relationship with the Gorons and the Zoras, the Clocktown people, the termites. So that's what happens by the time you get to Clocktown. All of these shenanigans have been taking place for the last few days. And that obviously is affecting Clocktown because they have no trade coming in. So they only can be really saving their kind of things. So villagers are doing desperate things to get what they need. Bear in mind, Skulk's also been messing with the people of Clocktown themselves, which we'll get to. And again, we're kind of just talking about we're just talking about Majora's Mask, just the general story here. But we'll get to the actual like lore of the mask soon. I promise, we'll get there. But so again, as it starts, like for example, an old woman has to travel north to gather supplies to get gunpowder by herself because the guards have to protect Clocktown from raids because people are getting so desperate. So they can't send guards out to just patrol Termina Field. So it's just basically open. So in that time, thieves are taking over, and there's a specific thief named Sakon who will rob an old woman of her bomb bag, which is basically her merchandise to sell at the bomb shop. Where you can, if you find her at midnight on the very first day, you can save her by striking Sakon with your sword, and he'll drop it. Do not shoot him with an arrow, or he'll explode and die. And also, the bombs will be gone, and the old lady will lose all of her merchandise for her shop. So it's not
that we care about the latter. We just want the bomb bag.
We just want the bomb bag. But actually, that's how you get the bomb mask. Fun fact. So if you save the old lady, she gives you the bomb mask, which is awesome, and you do want that. And this is actually going to start getting into some of what I'm talking about. So throughout basically, even as a Deku Scrub at the beginning, you can find out that there's kind of a certain culture going on. People keep talking about masks, and people keep referring to masks. And as you go on, that's basically how you're rewarded with them. And even the Happy Mask Shop salesman himself, good lord, that moon just scared the crap out of me. The Happy Mask Shop salesman himself will talk about the mask and what it does physically and what it represents, but he'll also tell you how you got it, even though he wasn't there. That's something that happens within the game. If you put a mask on and go talk to the Happy Mask Shop salesperson, he'll say something different every time because he'll talk about the mask you're wearing. Yeah. And if you put the bomb mask on and talk to him, he'll say, this mask is a fearsome, explosive mask that can take down rocks or something. He describes that. And then he goes, and it's also filled with the gratitude of a life saved or something like that because you saved the old woman. So, like, even though you'd think a bomb mask has nothing to do with gratitude, it does because of how you got it. So throughout the entire game, as you meet, because in this game, what I love about Majora's Mask is almost every NPC has a story, you know what I mean, or is connected to a story in some way, shape, or form, has a part to play. There are very few NPCs that really just kind of dick around and do nothing. Like even the carpenters have a 3-day arc, you know, that are building the towers. They even have an arc with their boss and everything, how their boss is defiant till the end and how they fled and how they were, you know, like contemplating staying.
Yeah, and because brave, you keep going through these same 3 days, you get more connected to these characters than like other games like Ocarina.
Yeah, exactly. And it become and you'll find out that you can basically keep helping these people and you'll keep getting masks. And it's just like, why do people keep giving you masks? Masks aren't just used, by the way, to to just like as gifts and stuff. They're used as symbols as well. For example, the mayor's wife gives you Kafi's mask to help show people that you're looking for him. Again, masks in this culture aren't always to be worn on the face. Sometimes they can be worn on like the hip, on the waist. You know what I mean? Like if you're it's like an accessory. Masks are accessories here in Termina. And that's something that you'll notice as you go on. If you go to the Stockpot Inn, there are masks all over the walls. If you go to the mayor's office, there are masks around there. So everywhere you go, you'll find masks, and that's something that's part of the culture. Now, where does that come from? That's very interesting. Well, you can actually talk to an old woman, and she talks a little bit about, 4 gigantic deity giants and, the potential, an old tribe and stuff like that, and that's good and helpful, and you can definitely do that. But it's surmised that, for the most part, the masks in this game are just used for, actually, each of the masks too, they have, for the most part, they all serve a purpose. Like, for example, the Mask of Truth, which is actually in Ocarina of Time as well, it is the white mask with a red and yellow eye with a kind of a creepy smile. You can read gossip stones and talk to animals with that mask on. It helps reveal things that might reveal things about consciousness that you might not know. It basically, the Mask of Truth, think of it as you can understand. It's almost like an empathy mask. You can basically understand how a living thing is feeling immediately and surmise what they're thinking, what they're feeling. It's really cool. Whereas the Lens of Truth, which is similar to the Mask of Truth, the Lens of Truth shows you physical things of truth and stuff like that. Anyway, the pig mask right above that one is it actually allows you to have the sense of smell of a pig, so you actually get super smell. The bunny hood mask, 2 to the left of the pig, allows you to run really quickly. The stone mask, up and to the right, that allows you to be invisible to some enemies, except for intelligent ones. Also, fun fact, the mask, not all the way to the left, the far left to the top one is the postman's hat. That one to the right, the one with the big googly eyes, is called the all-night mask. Fun fact, that is a mask that was used for torture. It's not a fun mask. It is specifically used for torture. If you put the all-night mask on, you cannot sleep. You can become exhausted and tired, but you can't sleep. So you get and it's surmised that was an old mask that was used in a certain place we'll get to soon to torture people. It's a very rare item. It's very rare.
So they would have really needed that Nightmare on Elm Street to not be able to sleep all night.
Yeah, exactly. Like that would have actually been pretty good, actually. It would have been nice. But it's funny, you use the all-night mask to stay up late so you can listen to an old woman's story who basically just like... she just doesn't shut up, and she talks for like 12 hours, and you fall asleep if you don't have the mask. Mm-hmm. And that's the whole point of it. So it's used for a funny gag in the game, but it's actually like really dark. Anyway, other masks do other things. Some of them come from interesting areas. For example, the bottom one that looks like a mummy is actually called the Jibdo mask. That mask is achieved by playing the Song of Healing to a man who almost succumbed to a terrible curse. In a place called Akana Valley.
Do you want to know a fun game fact to put in while we're talking about this mask list? The second row is Star Fox. There you go.
Oh my god, it is.
Yeah, even Pigma.
Oh my god. I never noticed that before.
Yeah. It's Fox, Falco, Peppy, Slippy, and Pigma.
Holy shit.
The original 5 members of Star Fox.
They didn't do that on purpose,
Yeah, no, 100%.
Okay. That's amazing.
100% on purpose, yeah.
I never noticed that before. That blew my mind. My mind just exploded. Oh my goodness. I love that, by the way. Also, I have Star Fox on my Switch now, and I'm excited to play that. Like the original, so I'm excited to play those too. Anyway, I'm loving Super Metroid. I'm finally playing it on my own, and I'm having a blast. Anyway, pun intended. Zelda pack, come on. So anyway, as you can see, masks are a big part of this culture. Well, why? Well, why, Pat? Why? Because they're used for everything. You can use a mask as a business card. You know what I mean? A mask is used to celebrate weddings. A mask is used to signify your job. It's used to signify your talent. You know what I mean? It can make you big. There's literally a giant's mask. Some masks you can imagine there are many of. Some masks there are only one of. For example, the all-night masks. There's just one all-night mask. There's only one giant's mask. There is only one Jibdo mask because you literally make it. Like, you know what I mean? Although, oh wait a minute. Actually, the Jibdo mask might be on the Happy Mask Shop salesman, his backpack. Because he's got a backpack. I believe
it is, yes.
I think it is actually. Because there's a few masks that he also has a Mario mask on it too. Fun fact. So the Happy Mask Shop salesman actually, well, that's not a Jibdo.
I guess it's not a Jibdo. It's different, but
yeah. But there's the Mario mask.
Picture. Yeah, you can see Mario back there.
Yeah, but there might be something else. But anyway, but there are duplicates of some other masks. For example, there are multiple Caffey masks. There are multiple Keaton masks. There are multiple the cow one that you see. That's called the Milk Cafe mask, I think, or the Chateau.
There's multiple post hats.
Yeah, there's multiple post hats. There's multiple moos. There's multiple pig masks, I believe, too. There's multiple. The Great Fairy mask there's one of, but I guess there could be more if the Great Fairy wanted to make more. So that's up to the Great Fairy. There are a lot of the creepy ones at the bottom underneath the purple-haired Caffey mask, the one that looked like kind of like a ninja mask almost with the glowing eyes. There's a lot of those because those were once, and we're going to start slowly getting into that because we're going to be making our way. They were a faction in Akana Valley, in Akana Kingdom, in the Stone Towers. They were one of the factions that took place in a great war once in Akana Kingdom. And so where does this fascination with masks come from? Well, we are finally looking east, aren't we? To Akana, to Stone Towers. And so we should probably talk about the immediate history from the game that we can see first, and then we'll dive into the ancient history. So in Akana Valley, you'll notice that there's really nothing there. No one lives there. There is a hideout for a scumbag thief, but that's kind of a little bit closer down. That's not really deep in the valley. That's kind of like on the other side of the river, so it's still a little bit closer to like Termina Field in Clocktown. But it's past the graveyard. It's past the Akana graveyard. Anyway, and then there's one house there, one single house that's called the Music Box House. And the Music Box House has a singular purpose. It keeps dark spirits at bay as long as there's water flowing. As long as the water is flowing down the river and the music box is playing, dark Jibdo spirits, dark Poes cannot infest the land of Ikana. But Pat, why would they? Well, because Ikana's haunted. So haunted. Oh my god, it's haunted. There's so much blood and regret. Like, Hyrule's history is super bloody, and we're eventually going to talk. I want to do a Lore Lords on Hyrule's bloody history because it's fascinating to talk about, like, the bottom of the well and the Shadow Temple and what they. Because, like, the bottom of the well was a torture chamber, for those who don't know. In this Hyrule Civil War, it was literally used where Hylians would torture other Hylians for information and rip them apart. It's brutal. And there's even a theory about Bongo Bongo, but we'll get to that. We're talking about Majora's Mask now. But Akana Valley has some, maybe even on par, if not greater, bloody history than Hyrule itself. So we're talking about torture chambers in the bottom of the well. Akana Valley, woof. So bear in mind, Akana Kingdom, where it's located in the Stone Towers in the valley, it's not exactly a nice place to live. There's no really good places to grow. There's only one source of water. Well, like there's one source of water that comes from the east and one source that comes from the north, from the mountains. The mountain water is basically the closest you can get to close, safe drinking water because the water that comes from the Ikana Valley, like from the east, it's not clean. I mean, it's technically fresh water, but it's not necessarily clean. They can't grow much there. So the people there, as you can imagine, are very tough, hardy people, or what they were. However, again, no one's there anymore except for a father and daughter whom you save by way of using the Song of Healing, and he gives you that Jibdo mask. And throughout your journeys in Akana in the game, you basically come across one wandering spirit after another, and they come in different shapes and sizes. Some of them are Jibdos, like the ones, the mummy boys. Some of them are the ninja folks. Oh my god, I can't believe I forget what the ninjas are called. What are they called again? This is gonna kill me.
Sheikah.
No, they're not. That's the Sheikah, the ninja.
That's every other game. Got it.
Yeah, that's Hyrule. Though the Sheikah are specifically Hyrule royal family ninjas. Like, they protect the Hyrule royal family. And the secrets, actually, you know what? I imagine the Sheikah would kill a royal family member if they thought the secrets would be revealed. Like, because they care about the secrets of the royal family. Like, they will take the torture things to their grave. Like, they know all the evil shit that Hyrule did. Which is why Sheik in Ocarina of Time is a badass, because they learn how to be a badass because they learned all the horrible ways of killing. Anyway, Majora, I gotta look this up. Majora's Mask, ninja folk. What are they called? Garo, sorry, Garo, Garo, or Jaro maybe. So the Jaros are like the ninja folk, and then there's of course the Stalfos of Akana. So basically the Stalfos Knights, made in a similar fashion to the ones that get lost, were adults in the Lost Woods. Stalfos Knights, fun fact, are adults who get lost basically, and their spirits are wandering, and it mostly happens in Hyrule in the Lost Woods. Fun fact, but it does happen. It can basically kind of theoretically happen anywhere where there's a strong connection to the mystical side of things. So it's the same thing in like Stone Tower. So there is this Garo faction or Jaro faction, and then there's also the Stalfos, or what was the Akana Kingdom people, the people of Akana Kingdom. Now this is going back into the history a little bit more. So right before we do that, I need to make sure I covered everything about what you do in the game. Yeah, so basically you come across all these spirits in the game. You help try to set them all free. You come across Poes as well. Poe ghosts, so those other dark spirits you have to come across and set free. Tons of different things like that. And so why is it empty, though? Why is Akana empty? Why is it not part of the trade of Clocktown and Snowhead and Zora and the Deku? Why is it absent from all this? Well, it's because, again, nobody wants to live here. Nobody wants to take it under the responsibility to keep that music box playing, except for, again, the brave father and daughter. He's actually a scientist, fun fact. He is a Akana and architect. He's kind of like, he's a little bit anthropologist, a little scientist, you know what I mean? That's
right.
That's why he's there. And if you actually look around in the house, like downstairs, you can see that. Like, he has like lab equipment everywhere. He's got like speakers everywhere too that play the song. So he that's why he's there. He's there to do research on Akana. He's basically a ghost hunter who got possessed, kind of. That's actually like one of my favorite parts of the game is that house. Mm-hmm. As a kid, I was fascinated by it. I used to redo that quest line, like that sub quest to get the Jibdo mask, over and over again because I was obsessed with like the idea of all of these trapped souls. Where it was like, because bear in mind, to free this man, he's transforming into a Jibdo, which is like a mummy. His house is being surrounded by Jibdos. There are Jaros or Garos literally all over the place, getting ready to pounce on anybody who passes and they feel needs to be or has any connection to the Akana royal family. And there are Poe ghosts that are stopping the water flow. So you have to go save you have to stop the evil Poes from the water, so you can get the water flowing again. The water then activates the music box house, which then starts the song again, which then gets rid of the Jibdos. So this man isn't just being Jibdo cursed. This man is being all around Akana bent over the table. Like, Akana came at this man and was like about to take him and his daughter and transform them into just new lost spirits, never to be heard of again. Unless Link comes along, you save them, and you try to basically save Akana, because when Majora comes here, he arguably does more damage to Akana than any other place. Yes, he poisons the water in Woodfall. Yes, he makes the water basically inhabitable for the Zoras, and yes, he puts the Snowhead in perpetual winter. But what he does in Akana is he basically manifests all of the bloodthirsty evil spirits from thousands of years ago back. He brings them back. And the more restless they get, the more powerful they get. And imagine this. Majora actually succeeds in dropping the moon on Clocktown and erasing this world. What's left except the dead? He's going to rule over that. Majora's Mask is going to kill everything and basically just rule over the dead, cursed people. And he wants the Akana people, if anybody survived the moon, He would basically take the armies of Ikana and go marching everywhere and just destroy any last living thing. Because I imagine the moon falling would affect Hyrule too, and it is theorized that it does. However, there could be still survivors, like holdouts in Death Mountain, or maybe holdouts in Kakariko Village, or something like that. So the idea is that Majora's Mask would then have free reign to go anywhere it wants in the world. Because now that we're getting back into the past a bit, we're going to talk about it. So why were these factions at war? Well, because there were some traditionalists versus some Ikana Kingdom people who wanted to advance and continue to progress in their society. But what are the traditionalists really looking for? Well, they miss their old sacrificial rituals. You know, they used to go to this little place under a waterfall, and they used to sacrifice people to a god deity named Majora. And then they stopped doing that. And so the Goros, the ninja folk, basically, are traditionalists. And they believe that Ikana is cursed and needs to be sent and to be brought back to their old ways. And if they're not brought back to their old ways, then something terrible will happen. And the world and the land will be decimated and destroyed. And the Ikana Kingdom, as we know it, will be destroyed and everybody will be killed. But the Ikana Kingdom, the king of Ikana, what was his name? He had like a fancy name. It was like Kana del, just something very like Latin based. But anyway, Inca de Ikana, something like that, some weird name like that. It was cool. I forget. I could look it up though. He, on the other hand, was like, no, we are a powerful kingdom that is advancing in all these ways. Because if you look at Ikana Kingdom, they have really high walls. They have ornate and beautiful like tapestries and artwork all over the place. Whereas Old Ikana doesn't. Old Ikana is basically just like very eerie spiky heart-looking symbols, which slightly resemble a specific mask. That's the only thing that they kind of see from the past. Whereas in Ikana Kingdom, again, you see beautiful marble, staircases and gorgeous tiled rooms and such. Oh, it's beautiful. Oh, yes, absolutely.
They basically founded civilization.
Yeah, exactly. And it's really wonderful. But these ninjas, the Garos, were like, no, we cannot do this. We must take you back. And so they work, and they had basically a civil war that lasted. It was a never-ending civil war because it was one of those civil wars, similar to some that happen in real life between religions that just can't get along, no matter how much you tell them to. Like, it's just that thing. So the war lasted thousands and thousands of years. However, and this is kind of the sad truth, The Garos were kind of right. Ingos du Ikana, that was the king's name. Ingos du Ikana, that was the Ikana king's name. But they were kind of right. The ninja Garos were kind of right because there was a vengeful spirit that was once satisfied and was satisfied no more, and it was no longer being satisfied by the bloodshed that the Garos gave them. He wanted more, because even further back in the past. We're doing Quentin Tarantinoing this. I'm giving you like the present. Now we're giving you the mild past, and now I'm giving you the mega past.
The deep past.
This is ancient history. This is when humans were living in caves. Gorons were probably weirder looking, and Zoras were still fish. You know,
shit, dude.
This was back then, and Deku were no more than trees, and they were more like Ents than they were like Deku. You know what I mean? This is way back then. The humans of Ikana, they basically. They would make sacrifices to a deity named Majora. They would put on a mask, a purple mask with gigantic glowing yellow, orange, and green eyes, and it had spikes protruding from its top and 3 from its bottom. And they would put that, and that mask was used from the priests to cut people open and torture them to death in the name of the god Majora. And they would do this basically on the daily. Like, oh, all right, but Majora was so satisfied that it was a thriving people. So the people, they kept having kids. So like basically, you'd have 4 kids, and one of them would get cut up. You know what I mean? But there
sorry, little Timmy, but you were the last one born, so you're the one who's going to have to go on the table.
Yeah, I would love to know exactly how that was chosen because again, it's very vague. Like this, I'm giving you as much detail as I can, and this is all surmise. This is a lot of all you can find out this stuff by going to the shrine that they use the sacrifices in. You can go to that shrine in Majora's Mask. It's a place you go and it's underneath a waterfall. It's really cool. And so you go there, and that's where they'd sacrifice people over and over and over again. And to be fair, in this old ancient Ikana, there wasn't necessarily a lot of war. I imagine there might be some tribal conflicts here and there, maybe, but like for the most part, it was generally pretty peaceful and prosperous. And as you can imagine, that prosperity led to new ideas like walls, like trading, like moving. So a lot of people have surmised that the people of Ikana moved further west and became the people of Clocktown. A lot of people, like some people didn't stay, some people left, and were like, let's go see if there's other land elsewhere. But then the further west they went, eventually they were like, well, the Zoras live there, well, the Gorons live there, and the Deku live there, but we can go here, and thus they created Clocktown, the center area. So it's again, very theorized that Ikana people migrated west to where Termina Field is and became Clocktown. And also, the evolution is they became more like Hylians, they became weaker. The Ikanas, fun fact, were massive, strong people. They were like, I mean, if you look at the Stalfos Knights in Ikana, like the ones that you actually have to fight, they're massive motherfuckers. Like, they're huge. And so the Ikanas were mighty powerful, like brutal barbarian types, And so, but as they progressed, again, it's the people that moved west, they became smaller just because they didn't need to be as big and they needed to fit a smaller space. And some even moved south and went to Romani Ranch. You know what I mean? Like that's even surmised to be a town in and of itself too, is the ranch area. There should be a town down there as well. And then they moved north and went up to the Snowhead village and made that village. There's also a tiny little village on the beach as well. There's a few houses there. So again, they moved, the people moved around just like people do. However, with all this evolution, these new walls, these new bridges, these new beautiful, immaculate homes made from sandstone and granite and rock, they came up with new traditions as well, and they started to leave some behind. And one of the ones they left behind was the savage tradition of sacrificing members of family and friends to the god Majora because we're so prosperous. Maybe it's just us. Maybe there's no god watching after us. Maybe there's no deity keeping us safe. And so they stopped. Now, of course, immediately, just like with any culture, there were people who resisted immediately. They were like, no, we should keep doing this. We should keep doing this. And they were always done in secret. And it is also surmised that because they were done in secret, Majora was still appeased, though they were done less often. And because they were done less often, other things would happen around Ikana Kingdom. So things would, like civil wars would break out between families a little bit more often. There would be more political strife. There would be a little bit more famine because they were doing sacrifices less and less and less. And so that's basically what Majora is. Majora is basically death inevitability, is the idea of chaos and death inevitable. And that is the whole point. It's laughing at you while it kills you because it's like, well, you're going to die anyway. That's Majora's Mask. And so that was, and remember, ancient Ikana, they enjoyed this practice. When they would sacrifice their family, they'd be like, oh, it'd be like, oh, wow, Jeff is getting sacrificed? Congratulations, Jeff. Oh, man, we're going to be there. We're going to watch. You know what I mean? Like, Doll, Atlas, and I will be there. Oh, we're going to support you, man. Congratulations. And Jeff would be like, he'd be obviously horrified, but at the same time, like, yeah, great. This is my greatest honor. Yeah. Like, so, like, but that's kind of how it was. Do we
know how these people, like, actually got in bed with this god?
No, that's, again, well, like, think of Majora as a lesser god, kind of like a primal in Final Fantasy, and less like, because, like, remember, the world was created by Din, Foror, and Nehru.
Right.
Like,
I'm just thinking, because, like, if Majora is around and he's that powerful, why is only this one kingdom affected by him?
We'll get to it. So he always had his power here in Ikana and in Termina in general, basically. But remember, focusing on Ikana, that's where Majora always was worshipped in his power. Meanwhile, halfway across the world in Hyrule, no one fucking knew about Ikana. No one cared. Why would anyone care? There's no worshipping of Majora there. There's no one's thinking about that name. No one even knows the name Majora over in Hyrule. So they're not worshipping Hyrule. They're not worshipping Majora. So that's why it's like he only has power there, is because he was only ever worshipped there. And again, he's a lesser deity. He's not Din, Furor, and Nehru. He's more of a deity. He's a deity of magic, kind of similar to the Great Fairies, honestly. Very similar to, whereas the Great Fairies don't really have any power to do damage. The Great Fairies are there to basically keep balance in their respective zones. You know what I mean? Like, that's what they do. They, like, the Great Fairies are always where they are, be like, okay, if I'm a Great Fairy of the forest, I'm making sure that the forest stays a forest. Like,
right.
You know, like, and so on. So, like, and that's what they are. And, like, whereas Majora, again, he's kind of just a deity of death. And there could be multiple deities of death. Zelda could go blow up and expand greatly and have tons of these kind of deities. And they kind of have. Because we've talked about other, like, Demise is another one. You know what I mean? Like, who is basically Ganon. Like, you know what I mean? That is, like, that's a deity too. But it's not Din 4 or Nehru necessarily, but it's a lesser one that is still mega dumb, stupid, powerful, and can only be brought by a matching deity. And again, we'll get to this too, and I'm very excited to eventually make that reveal. But so, like, anyway, back to a little bit of the history. So that's why Majora, though, is contained to Termina, is because it's the only place anyone ever knew him. And so, but the mask tradition kept, by the way. And that's why in Clocktown to this day, people still wear masks, is just because of, ironically, this evil, torturous thing. Like, but they don't remember that. That's not why. Terminians, or termites, they don't remember that. Like, so they just wear masks because it's fun. Like,
because it's a tradition that we don't understand that Christmas exists because we sacrifice people in fire.
Exactly. Like, it's basically Christmas. Yeah, masks are Christmas. There's a lot of real life parallels I could have been making that I've been keeping in my head, but that's definitely a good one. The paganism of this world is real. And so as time goes on, these sacrifices happen less and less until at some point somebody, I don't know, and this is all, again, this part I wish I knew more of, and maybe I should do some diving, is somebody, whether it's from Clocktown, it could have been a Goron, it could have been a Zora, it could have been a Deku, it could have been an Akanian before they went extinct because they're gone. Somebody took Majora's Mask the fuck out of Termina. Somebody took it out. And when it's in anywhere else, it's just a mask. Although it does glow in the dark. So at night the eyes glow still. It's the only thing that the eye that the power still maintains in Majora's Mask, because you can wear Majora's Mask in Breath of the Wild. Yeah, you can find and wear it, and it glows at night. And it's because the evil spirit deity of Majora is still alive and well in that mask, even while you're wearing. Like, think about that next time you're playing and you put that on. And be like, if I step 1 foot into Termina. Maybe because you're the hero of time or the hero of light or whatever you are in that game, the Triforce hero, maybe you'd be okay because you have that resistance. Like, you literally have the goddesses on your side. But, like, you know, you would basically bring doom upon Termina once again. Right. So, because Majora's Mask it also can't be destroyed. It's kind of like the ring, you know. Well, maybe it can. Maybe it can be destroyed in that sacrificial chamber. I don't know. Or maybe by the bloodline of the people who made it. I don't know. Who knows? I don't know. But somebody took Majora's Mask out of Termina, and it got its power removed. But ironically, what were we talking about? Oh, about 58 minutes ago? Link went to go find his friend and ended up in Termina, and he attracted, and who was following him was the happy mask shop salesman, who spent years looking for Majora's Mask, and it was his prized possession. So of course he wouldn't part with it. He kept it on his person. He didn't leave it at the store in Hyrule, guarded by guards, where no one would break in, because it was peacetime in Hyrule, because Link and Ganondorf was literally put away into the Twilight Realm. We've talked about this. Like, Ganondorf's gone. Like, he's in the Twilight Realm. It's peacetime in Hyrule. Like, no, he didn't leave it there in a safety chest, in a locked chest. No, he brought it with him. And it's kind of, and ironically, you know, it's because he was following Link. He basically wanted to start a new chain of mask shop.
Yeah.
Like, he's a capitalist
he's
looking
branching
for more
out,
money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, that's all the happy mask shop salesman is. And then, but when he goes into Termina, he realizes what he's done. Because immediately the mask manifests and brings chaotic energy towards it. And what is more chaotic than a Skull Kid? So then the Skull Kid puts the mask on, yada, 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 and welcome back, Majora, baby. Majora then spends the next, few days fucking shit up before Link shows up. So so he's not at full power yet, bear in mind. Majora's trying to get his power back, because he's still like, okay, he's still flexing. He's like, okay, I can poison waters again. I can make eternal winters again. I can make water sterile. I can do these things. That's good. That's powerful. Let me see what I can do with this moon. And then he tries to bring the moon down on Clocktown. And
Moon.
the moon.
Also, just for the reference, the Happy Mask salesman is supposed to be Shigeru Miyamoto.
That is pretty funny. Oh man, that moon is freaky. But anyway, so fast forward all the way to your time. That's right. Now we're back in present time. Link is in this barren wasteland of a kingdom. He saved the scientist and his daughter. He's setting souls free one at a time, baby. And then after you beat Twin Mold, the boss of Stone Towers, basically you set those weary souls free once again. So the haunted, even though Ocarina, by the way, it's always been haunted, even before Majora came back and like infected the world with his dark magic again, it was still always haunted. You know what I mean? It was always haunted. Like, I mean, come on, you don't have that many civil wars for thousands and thousands of years and not be haunted. So, but with Majora there, it was all in chaos, and again, it was only a matter of time before the armies of Ocarina could have made their way to Clocktown anyway. If he, he could have ended the world in a lot of different ways, but he just wanted to end it with a big old bang.
Right.
Yeah. So Link saves the day. Ocarina is freed. The scientists and his daughter are free to work in peace, study the history and anthropology of the old Ocarinians, and we can learn more about them now. Yay! And so, and thus the day is saved, thanks once again to the Powerpuff Girls. And you don't really learn much more after that. You kind of just go from there right to Clocktown to fight to fight Majora and everything. But there's a reason why Ocarina is the last one you go to, because you start off by going to Woodfall, and then from there you go to Snowhead, and then from there you go to the beach in Zora, and then from there you go to Ocarina. They save Ocarina for last because Majora is aware that that's where his power has the most potency, but also where his weakness is. The reason why Twin Mold is there, this gigantic behemoth of, like, two giant behemoth moldworms. Okay, think of Moldworm, but, like, the size of the Empire, two of them, and the size of the Empire State Building. You have to fight those. That's why those are the bosses there, because Majora is just like, there's no way he can save them. There's no way he can stop Stone Tower. Even if he beats Odolua, which is an old ancient, guardian of the woods and Woodfall from way back in the ancient times. Even if he beats Got, the mechanical beast from, the ancient times when there were still... just bear in mind, keep in mind in your Zelda history, everybody, there was technology, like electronic technology, magnet technology, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, before Hyrule, before Termina, any of that. There was little robot creatures. And Got is one of the is an old ancient creation, and you fight that in Snowhead. In Zora Hall, you basically just fight a giant fish. But in Stone Tower Temple, you fight those gigantic beasts. And boy, howdy, are they horrifying. But that's actually a really kind of a fun boss fight, because you get the Giant's Mask for that fight, so you become basically a gigantic skyscraper yourself and just wail on them to death. It's awesome. It's a good time. And in the 3DS remake, you don't have your sword and shield, so you actually punch them. It's really funny.
Which is great. I love that.
I love it. I do love it, too. You're literally just like a hulking Link, and you just Hulk, Link, smash. It's great. Although I do think the bosses are more boring in the 3DS remake. They're way more tough on the original N64. But whatever. That's not really a complaint so much as it's an observation. Because all of them have big eyeballs in the remake, and you have to hit the eyeballs, where in the original you just kind of hit them. But anyway. And it's hard to. Because Gyorg, the fish, is easily the hardest boss in that whole game. Hands down. Even Majora. So, but remember, actually, Alice, pull out that mask chart for me, would you? We were talking about it earlier. The Happy Mask Shop salesman, or Miyamoto, he actually hit him with the eyeball. Hit him in the eyeballs, exactly. The Happy Mask Shop salesman talks about the different emotions that go inside of all the masks. So, and you can get these masks in various ways. Sometimes they're gifts and tools that are just to help you make your way through, but they all have something to them. And again, we talked about, which one did we talk about already? We talked about the, the bomb mask has the bomb mask had the old lady's gratefulness attached to it. The Jibdo mask has the love of a father and daughter in it because you saved the father. The Giant's mask has the history of Akana and the souls of an old culture long dead. The Mask of Truth is the Mask of Truth, and it is magic, and can literally is literally empathy in a mask. Again, if you put like, it'd be the perfect tool if you have one of those. If you're in one of those relationships where you're like, "Hey, babe, are you okay?" and they're like, "I'm fine." You put the Mask of Truth on, and you could be like, "Oh, you're still thinking about how your dad said he's disappointed in you."
Oh, you're still thinking about that one time that you didn't understand. Yeah, where all this milk kept coming from, and
yeah, that's what the Mask of Truth is. You could just do that. The pig mask actually comes from, even though it's kind of a pig mask, it's kind of funny. It comes from a worried father looking for his son, which is really sad, by the way, because the son is dead. The son is the Deku mask. The son is the Deku mask.
Is sad.
It's very sad. All of these masks have stories attached to them. The Great Fairy mask even has basically the Great Fairy's personality in it, which is basically a nymph. Basically a nymph. Anyway, the creepy mask to the bottom left, the one with the goatee, that actually has the soul of a grateful teacher inside of it. But anyway, you get it. The masks have feelings attached. The masks have intention and emotion and empathy attached to them. And thus, you bring those masks at the very end of the game together. And you end up, actually, you can kind of see it in that picture that is on the screen there. If you look past the masks, you can see this great tree on a hill. Under that great tree, there are children running around and playing. 4 children playing, 1 child sitting alone by himself. The 4 children you can talk to will ask you, "Give me masks." And they're by the way, they are stoic, pan-faced children. They do not have emotion. And when you give them masks, they start to have emotion. Weird. Why, I wonder? Maybe it's because the masks are filled with emotion. They're filled with feelings. And then when you give them the masks, they make you go on a challenge. And they're actually really fucking hard. Well, at least the Goron one is hard as hell, but it's fun. But after you finish their challenges, you have to give them even more masks. Not your transforming masks, but you have to give them so the 4x5 masks that you see, you have to give all of those away to these 4 children. And as you do, though, they'll start questioning things, and they'll say things like, "To be a good person, is that really good? To help others, to love is that good?" They start questioning things. They start asking, to be grateful. Is this good? Is this good to do? They start asking you questions and stuff. And after you've given all the masks away, all the ones you can give away, you can't give away the transformation masks. They don't want those. Because those masks have different types of souls in them. Those masks have lost souls in them. But when you finally give all those masks and go up to the one child who is sitting under the tree alone, he goes, "Hey," he kind of says something else. And he's the one who, and the child sitting under the tree by himself is actually the one wearing Majora's masks himself. And he goes, "Hey, nobody wants to play with me. Do you want to play with me?" And then he looks at you and kind of says something along the lines of, "You're not strong enough to play with me." And after you've given all the masks, if you haven't given all the masks, you can play with him anyway, but you fight him as regular Link. And it is one of the hardest boss fights in Zelda. It's so hard. But if you did give all the masks away, he goes, "Well, hold on a second," and he gives you the Fierce Deity's mask. And we're going to talk about the Fierce Deity's mask, which I am so pumped to talk about because it is one of the single coolest and probably most powerful items in Zelda history, period. It is it's a damn shame that this mask does not come back in any other game. Because it is probably one of the most powerful items you can get in any game. And it is called the Fierce Deity. And what it is a manifestation, and yeah, that's Fierce Deity Link. It is a manifestation of all of the emotions and souls of people of Termina. All the people you helped, all the different feelings, all the hope and love and joy that you gave these people when you helped them out is manifested into this. So it's called the Fierce Deity, but it is an angry deity. That's because fierce meaning anger. So it is a ferocious monster, but it is a ferocious monster. It's kind of like the saying when a good man goes to war, like, because Fierce Deity is the manifestation of all the good and love in Termina fighting for survival, taking all the passion they ever had and saying, no, now we fight together. It's the spirit bomb of masks, if we're doing Dragon Ball Z. It is basically that. It's like, so when Link puts it on, every single soul he's talked to and touched in Termina manifests into the mask at once, and he becomes the Fierce Deity, and his sword becomes this double helix that's able to cast incredibly powerful beams that do literally 4 times the regular sword amount of damage, and you can make Majora's Mask look like I don't know what's something that you can kick like a toddler, like go punch a 3-year-old in the face. That's Majora's Mask when you're this powerful. You are mega strong as Majora's Mask, or as the Fierce Deity Link. It is dumb. like And so, that's the Majora's Mask in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. You could play as Majora's Mask Link. It is just the getup, though. It wouldn't be fair if you could actually be Majora's Mask Link.
Yeah,
Deity Link.
he looks cool.
He does.
I think it's a cool little reskin of Link.
Yeah, definitely, it looks dope. But I love the Fierce Deity Link because here's why it's amazing between the Fierce Deity and the Majora's Mask. Because Majora's Mask is an ancient mask. It's argued to be the first mask, even. Whereas the Fierce Deity Link is created right then and there. It is a brand new mask. It is all of the history of Termina manifested, and the power and energy and the souls into this one thing. To say, no, Majora, we are past you. We're done with you. We don't want your traditions anymore. And although you can't be killed because you're a deity, you can be sent back in this mask and sent away. And that's what happens. As new Termina, basically, like, you shut down the old way of Majora and the old way of torture and evilness, and then you basically unshackle Termina from that fate. And then you go on your way. And then Link, once again, saves everybody and leaves because he's not from there. He doesn't want to live there. He goes back to Termina. He goes back to Hyrule, I mean. And I sadly fades away. He probably should have stayed. He probably could have. People would have remembered him, because he had all of his masks back. Because remember, he got the Fierce Deity mask in a different plane of existence before he fought Majora. When he got back to Termina, he had all of his masks again. He had all of them, including the Fierce Deity, fun fact, including that one. So that one manifested into reality. So the Fierce Deity mask is a real mask now. It exists and has great power. Assumed, similar to Majora's Mask, only in Termina. But nonetheless, it is still one of the most powerful things, and it is creating the balance. So Majora's Mask could make its way to Termina once again, and if it does, it could cause chaos and try to bring the moon down once again. But now we know of a mask that lingers somewhere in Termina that a brave hero can put on and don every single fighting soul who tried to just survive and move forward and create something truly special in a land far away from Hyrule, far away from monarchies and everything else, a land of genuine freedom. And that's what I really love about Termina, is its culture is that of truly free. Like, there's somewhere you can go and live the way you want to live. If you want to live as a hippie stoner on the beach, go live as a hippie stoner on the beach. If you want to live as a hard-working apothecary, move down to Woodfall in the swamps, because boy howdy, they got that there. Oh, do you want to learn how to race and be a tough warrior? Go to Goron. There's any way you want to live, you can do that in Termina, and that balance is now protected by the ancestor and the progress that was made there, and I think that is so fucking cool. So, and that's the history of Majora's Mask and the Fierce Deity. So the Fierce Deity mask is not old at all. It's actually it's a baby mask. It's a brand new baby mask, but
for a baby Link.
Yeah, exactly. And it is. I just love it though. Oh man, it's so cool. And my whole thing, and this is what I would love to see. If they ever would create a sequel of some kind to Majora's Mask, or allow Majora's Mask to have influence in the Zelda universe further, I would love there to be, and this is actually, and I'll talk about it a little bit, because I don't think anything's going to ever come of it, so it's just fun to talk about. I was writing like an original Zelda story, and in my story, one of Ganondorf's main kind of side quests for himself is to hunt down Majora's Mask, because he wants to obtain that power for himself. And so what happens is, in my story, he does obtain it, but it has no power in Hyrule. However, using the Triforce of Power, he's able to unlock Majora's hidden potential anywhere in the world. So he does that while wearing it and becomes basically Chaos Ganondorf or Chaos Ganon. And so he's not just the evil demon deity Demise. He's basically the fusion dance of Demise, the evil demonic demon, and Majora, the evil demonic demon. So the demon of Hyrule, which is Demise, and the demon of Termina, Majora, combined together basically and to rule. That's his goal. And that kind of becomes the main premise of my story. Well, not the main premise, but a major premise of the story is that. And so Link would obviously have to do something similar with Fierce Deity. But if you think about how the Fierce Deity mask was created, with all the memories and powers and events and things that happened in Termina, imagine how powerful the Fierce Deity of Hyrule would be. Imagine how ridiculous that, because all the history of Hyrule, we've played that history. We know how intense it is. Imagine all of that power manifested into a mask, So it's there's a lot of cool things that the Nintendo can do with these concepts moving forward. And deities, actually, and if you want to even do some meta loring here, we can talk about it. The Fierce Deity and Majora both are connected to Buddhism. Whereas in Termina, besides Majora, the god Majora, and the god the Fierce Deity, there are 4 other deities, that giants that you have to save throughout the game. You save the 4 giants from all the different temples and from the main bosses. And those giants are actually represented as Buddhist deities of the east, south, north, south, east, and west, just like they are in Termina. And at the center of, oh my god, that's great. At the center of these patron deities of Buddhism is a fierce deity similar to the Fierce Deity Link. It holds a sword in one hand, and in the other hand, I believe, something else, but I forget. And it's basically a representation of keeping the balance between the north, south, east, and west, and making sure that they stay alive and stay powerful. So it's actually a direct inspiration from Buddhism, which I thought was very, very interesting. And also, Fierce Deity is a direct translation to Oni as well. If you talked about our Phasmophobia lore lords from last time, we talked about Onis being demons of Buddhist lore. But and I actually forgot to say this on last week's lore lords, but Onis can actually be converted to Buddhism. So they can actually become enlightened and become good. I forgot to mention that, but Onis can become good things. So and that's basically the idea between this Oni that is represented in as the Fierce Deity in Majora's Mask, is that this is an Oni that has reached enlightenment and is there to protect the people and protect the universe and protect the world. While still knowing all the evil that it can bring, because that's what the Fierce Deity is too. You know what I mean? It's it knows all the bad things too, all the evil things that had ever happened in Termina is there too. So it knows how to fight, basically. Right. Right. So yeah, and I think that is so cool, and I love that how they connected that to Buddhism as well. Because there's a lot of what I like about Termina and its lore is it's a little bit Buddhist and a little bit kind of European, what's the word I'm looking for? Paganism and trading and culture and very almost American even. Again, that idea of hey, do you bring value to our land? Okay, then you're welcome here. The supposed American dream. You know what I mean? That hey, are you gonna try to do something cool here? Cool, welcome. That's Termina. Do whatever you want. Be whoever you want to be. But again, it's all kept in balance by the four corner deities and the deity of balance in the middle, who is the Fierce Deity and is created then. So, and I don't think I have anything else to really talk about, but I can answer questions now. So, Slim, when did the timeline splitting occur in Ocarina of Time? It happens when Link removes the Master Sword. No, the splitting happened. Well, I guess a little bit technically. When Link pulls the Master Sword out initially in Ocarina of Time, he's sent 7 years in the future. Which, of course, in that 7 years, Ganondorf takes over. He slaughters half of Hyrule, basically subjugates the other half, And there you are going, fuck, I was sleeping for 7 years. No, you weren't sleeping. Theoretically, you were. All the knowledge of 7 years was put into you as well. It is surmised. But the real timeline split happens at the very, very end. At the very end, after you beat Ganon, there is a scene with you and Zelda talking. You guys are kind of just like floating, actually, in the ethereal plane, I guess. But the idea is that it's a magical moment between two characters. That's why it's like that. It's just because it's supposed to be a very intimate moment between two friends that haven't seen each other in a long time. Well, kind of. But Zelda makes the decision to send Link back to his childhood. Zelda, bear in mind, it has the manifestation of wisdom. However, she is still a very empathetic and loving and caring person at heart. And it is theorized to be the one mistake she makes in Ocarina of Time. The one mistake she makes is she sends Link into the past, again, to relive his childhood. So at the end, and so what that does is that leaves the future that Link technically saved from Ganon open. There is no hero. There's no hero that knows about what happened. It's just wide open. Zelda's there to rule over and to try to rebuild, but she's by herself, and that's about it. Like, Ganon was sealed away, and only comes back a few years later during and causes the events of Wind Waker. And then Link gets sent back in time, and he goes on the Majora's Mask quest, which eventually leads to the Twilight Princess quest. It's actually the three timelines. Again, I said this on the Lore Lords. They represent the three Triforce pieces: the power, wisdom, and courage. In the timeline where Link is killed and defeated, because that also is the other thing. The other timeline split is during the fight with Ganondorf and Ganon in Ocarina of Time. Is if you lose, that's technically canon. Like, you're allowed to lose that fight, and it's technically canon.
Yeah, it's just that you don't get an ending cinematic or anything, but it ends.
Yeah, but it ends. Yeah, and the way it ends is Link dies, presumably in a brutal fashion because he's fighting Ganon. Again, it's probably brutal. And then he turns right over to Zelda and kills her too. And then takes over, and then that starts the power timeline, which starts the very original Legend of Zelda, and A Link to the Past, and Season of Ages, and Seasons. Or no, sorry.
Ages.
Oracle of Ages. Yes, I can't remember that. Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages. And that's that timeline. The timeline where Zelda sends Link back to his childhood is the Courage timeline, because he goes to Termina and faces that thing staring at us on screen right now, which is arguably horrifying. So Link faces true horror in that timeline and has to go above it, because not only is it Majora's Mask, but it's also Twilight Princess, the other darkest game in the franchise, besides maybe the original Legend of Zelda. And then there's the Wisdom timeline, which is the one that Zelda left behind, which is, again, ironically created from the one decision she made in Ocarina of Time, which was to send Link back. And that is the Wind Waker timeline. So after Hyrule is flooded, that is considered the Wisdom timeline, where, because then Tetra becomes the queen, and the Princess Zelda, and she's like stupid competent. Like, Tetra is like dumb competent in a Wind Waker. Like talk about strong female characters.
Tetra's the best.
Yeah, like one of the best forms of Zelda, in my opinion.
Of all Zelda forms, Tetra's the best one for sure, I think.
Yeah, I like Skyward Sword because she's very ooh woo. Like, Skyward Sword Zelda's very like ooh woo. I'm helpful and very powerful, and I want to help everybody. But she's not as like. But like, Tetra's just a badass. Tetra's so badass. Although Zelda Ocarina of Time Link is pretty. That Zelda's pretty badass too. To be fair, she learns some things. But unfortunately, so that's part of the little bit of more Zelda lore, and again, a little timeline talk. I'm always happy to brush up your timeline lore. So, but my favorite timeline is the Courage timeline. I love Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess. They're two of my favorite games of all time. So, and again, the themes that are addressed in both of those games, because I could do a Lore Lords on Twilight Princess as well. Because again, the themes in those games are all about despair, sorrow, and most importantly, hope. And I love that. Like, because again, when you played Majora's Mask for the first time, you kind of like it. I would love them to do a total graphic overhaul and make it look like, like gorgeous, like almost like like Breath of the Wild looking. Because I would love to see the abysmal horror you get when you walk outside and you look up and you're like, what the fuck am I supposed to do about that? When I was a kid, I actually had no idea how I was supposed to beat this game. I was like, how the fuck am I supposed to do this? I'm a Deku and I can't get past the first day. Like, because if you remember, it's actually really hard. The beginning of that game is tough. You're a Deku for the first like 2 hours, and you don't have a sword. Your best weapon is a blow dart, which is basically you blow like mildly poisonous bubbles, like kind of acidic or something. Like they're not that strong. Like you can't do damage. You can't even leave Clock Town because the guards won't let you because they look at you and they're like, you're a little kid. You can't go out there. Like you're a tiny little Deku boy. You can't go. Until you get your sword back, and then they're like, all right, you got a sword, you're good. But so like it's so hard.
Yeah. I mean, so the guy who made it, I think his name is Imamura was the one who made Ocarina of Time and Legends and Majora's Mask.
Yeah.
He when he made Majora's Mask, he didn't want to make a clone of Zelda Ocarina of Time. And so he was given the engine, and he made a game. I think it was just the beginning level, and it was the invention of what we would know now as a Souls game.
Ha!
And they said no. Nintendo said no. This is way too difficult. You can't do this. It's too brutal. Make a clone of Ocarina of Time. So he did. And some of it still shows though the game was much more difficult than Ocarina.
Oh, way harder.
And he wanted to make a harder game, and so he did. But he didn't get to make it as hard as he wanted to. It even had the bonfire system like from Souls games. Same system was in the game. It was going to be, I think it was supposed to be like torches you would run to, light them, and it'd be like your save point.
That's a good idea with the time traveling in Majora's Mask, because the time traveling in Majora's Mask and in Ocarina is very different. So, because you have 3 days in Majora's Mask. I do like how the Ocarina of Time still has power in Termina, though, but it's lesser, so it's kind of just like, you can rewind a couple days. It's about all you can do. Like whereas in the Ocarina of Time and in Hyrule can do, like, a lot. But can literally send you years into the future, or help you send you years into the future. But, yeah. No,
that's what it was. Okay, so it was supposed to be that when you would die in the original version of the game, you would drop all your masks. And have to gather them again when you came back to life.
Oh wow, that's actually pretty cool. That does sound hard though.
Yeah,
but they kept part of that. You lose your items when you go back in time.
Yeah,
some of your items.
No, I think a lot of that idea carried over, and you can see he tried to hold on as much of it as he could, but I guess he really just didn't want to make Ocarina of Time 2.
Oh yeah, and he succeeded, wholeheartedly succeeded. I mean, that's why people theorized that the game was actually like Link's hallucination. That after Ocarina of Time, he went crazy from everything he saw. That's not what happened. Like, the reason why all the characters look the same is because it's the same game engine. It's literally
no. It's not like supposed to be. I know what you're talking about, but it's very obvious if you look back at it now, especially seeing big greater Zelda lore. That's not supposed to be that. It's just assets being reused.
Yeah,
because
and there are new
engine.
Characters in in Majora's Mask. There are new people you haven't seen in Ocarina of Time that show up. So.
Yeah, this game came out very quickly. It had a very short development cycle, and that's because that's why they have those assets. They didn't have time to make a lot of models.
Yeah. Which is amazing how quickly they made this game. Cause
it's amazing.
It's the cult class.
It's amazing, but it is a lot of copy pasting, like we were just talking about. And you can tell. I think back then, the way that you made 3D models took so long that copy and pasting a model over in the code was so much easier, and they would just reskin it, or something like that. I think I have a feeling a lot of the programming time probably went to level design as well as mask functionality.
Yes, absolutely, because that was like a lot of the unique stuff. Because a lot of the teleport, like the Song of Soaring, was basically the exact same thing as the teleportation, plates that you do in Ocarina of Time. So like there was so much that was the same. I wanted to know this for a while. Did the moon always have a face, or does the face appear when Majora pulls it towards the planet? I actually think it always has a face. I think it's supposed to. And the reason it's making that face, though, is because it is slightly being possessed by Majora, and it doesn't want to do this, by the way. Like, the moon has a personality. I think, like, I don't know if this is true. This is my theory. I think the moon is a deity in and of itself. Like, just like a moon deity, basically. Just like, I'm here to float. Like, like, I'm here to sleep and float. And that Majora's pulling it closer, and it doesn't want to. Like, this face it's making, if this makes it even scarier for you than it does for me, I don't see it as a face of evil. I see it as a face of fear. It's scared. It's like, oh God, I'm about to crash and die. Like, it doesn't want to. Yeah, like, that's its resisting face. It's trying not to. Yeah, it's like, it's resisting, because he says, when it falls, it goes, it says to you, I will consume everything. And, like, that's what he says. And he's not happy about it. The moon isn't happy. Oh. The moon has a personality, and he just wants to float around. He just wants to help with tides. That's it.
So I just added a fun game development fact, too, about that.
Oh, yeah?
The moon didn't have a face until the final version of testing to add urgency to the quest.
Ha! I like that. It definitely didn't.
Apparently a large moon in the sky wasn't threatening enough, so they put that face on it.
Yeah. Well, it's horrifying, and it did it. Because the eyes, by the way, reflect Majora's Mask. Which, by the way... Oh, yeah, no, you did post. I was like, did you ever actually put a picture of Majora's Mask on the screen? I was like, yeah, you did earlier.
There was, yeah.
I was like, but, like, it has very similar eyes. And the reason why it has similar eyes is because it's surmised that, like, it's being possessed and being pulled down. So, like, yeah. But man, but, like, that's why I love that game so much. It like, for me personally, as a kid, I was always, like... I always felt a little detached from certain things, and, like, sometimes I couldn't, and I don't know, maybe it was because I was actually way more introverted than I think my parents would want to admit. I always really attached to this game because it was all about making really strong connections and saving people from their, like the game was about mistakes and atonement and about, like, these really, really deep adult things that as a kid I couldn't understand, but I wanted to. Like, again, like I said earlier, I replayed that story with Pamela and her father, because that's the little girl's name is Pamela, and the scientist at the music box in Akana Canyon. I replayed that over and over again because I wasn't so much obsessed with, like, oh, good, you saved a little girl's dad. I became obsessed with, like, the idea of like, just, like, the past coming back to haunt you, and the idea of, like, of curiosity taking you too far, and these ideas of, like, desperation and like, this little girl Pamela, she's what, 6 years old or something, you know what I mean? She is thrown into adulthood. She's taking care of her father. She's keeping trying to keep a house going. She's trying to keep Gibdos, gigantic zombie creatures, away. She's keeping them at bay somehow before you show up. So, like, you know, like, it's amazing that this story takes place, and then there's a story of Kafi and Anju, which is basically a love story. But at the very end of it, when you finally save them and reunite them again, Kafi's still a kid. He's still in the shape of a kid. So when he hugs his lover, he looks like a son hugging his mother.
Yeah, it's one of the most fucked up things in the game.
Yeah, it really is. But it's sad because, again, even I think Tattle, your fairy companion, even makes the comment, being like, it actually just looks like a mother and child, not lovers at all. It's really bizarre. By the way, it gets fixed. He goes to Kafi goes to the Great Fairy in the north, and he gets brought to his normal state again after the Majora is defeated. So he becomes an adult again. Don't worry. Anju doesn't marry a child.
I found something out very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk to the twins on the moon,
yes,
they mention that the moon did not look like this prior to the actions of the Skull Kid.
Yes.
They also mention that before the actions of the Skull Kid, the moon was tranquil, but now it's possessed by a spirit of shadow.
Yeah.
And in Hyrule Warriors, it is referenced that the Shadow King himself possesses the moon, which is Ganon.
Whoa.
So the moon might be the Ganon of Majora's Mask.
Wow. That's really unique, because that means that Majora is the spirit, like Demise, and then the moon is Ganondorf. That's meta.
So again, we kind of talked about it a little bit in the Zelda 1, I'm not spoiling Breath of the Wild for you, but you see Ganon in a different form then that turns a lot of ideas of what he actually is on its head.
Yeah, well, from what I understand,
that kind of links to this as well, maybe.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of reference to original Ganon in Skyward Sword as well.
Yeah,
because where his original soul comes from, like how he's like Ganon isn't like what the Ganon that we know from a lot of these games, like the older games and stuff, is basically just like the evolution of a different potent being, like an original, kind of like what we were talking about with Majora being a really ancient old evil. Like, from what I understand, Ganon is the same way.
Yeah, that's kind of what it hints at, and it's just like represented in the form of a pig, but like it's like the oldest evil ever to exist at the creation of creation.
Yeah.
Given manifest. And so therefore it wouldn't necessarily, even though Ganondorf is locked in the Sacred Realm or at the time of Majora's Mask.
Yeah.
His evil is still out there, you know? Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, and heck, the moon might even have a further connection to, because again, the moon, like you said before, it's like it has its own spirit.
Yeah, because Hyrule Warriors is canon. It's a canonical game. It just takes place in another world, and it reaches things from other time periods and other worlds into its world. Well, it's another Hyrule at some point in time, and it reaches through the past and the present and the future to bring things, you know, because they're desperate for heroes, kind of idea, right?
Yeah. It's a very silly one, but it's still good.
Yeah, it's like having to give an explanation to Smash Bros. You know what I mean? Like, we have to get these characters in here, but sure, I'm summoned the force of the past.
We'll get Agatha here. Why not?
Yeah, exactly. Just bugs. Yeah.
Oh my God. Agatha, use solar beam. But anyway, but no, that's what's so cool about. I don't know. I just love this. But I don't think I have anything else to say about Majora's Mask for now. I could probably go into the different histories and different characters even. But it's just so cool, and the themes in the game as a kid were really like they kind of helped me grow up. You know what I mean? Like, because I was contemplating some seriously like adult themes in this game that were not in Ocarina of Time, whereas Ocarina of Time is like, save the princess, save the world, yay! Majora's Mask is this kind of like, do what you can.
Yeah, we're like, good luck. Pat on the back. Good luck out there, sport.
Yeah, have fun. If you panic, play that song. You'll go back 3 days. Yeah. Good luck. It's like that's it. Like, that's all you get. So like, there was something that felt so helpless about Majora's Mask, and I think I said this before. Actually, I think I remember saying this on a stream once, that like the difference between Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask was that like Ocarina of Time, you felt as though you were getting stronger and stronger, and that you were eventually going to win, whereas Majora's Mask, you just felt like you were doing what you could.
Yeah.
And it thankfully was enough, but like it didn't feel like anything was a sure thing. Like, everything you were doing was just like, is this going to help? I don't know. Like, it turns out to help you, because if you do it all, then you get the Fierce Deity mask, and then you become literally a god. So, it does. But that's kind of the whole point, is like, you could play the whole game without helping the people out, but if you do, you're not going to... It's going to be a hard fight at the end. A real hard fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, Slim said it good. Majora's Mask felt like you were much more moderated in your power. Like, yeah, like when you got the hook shot and the bow and arrow, you didn't feel that much more powerful. Like, you were like, yeah, I can get to places now.
Speaking
but
of
like,
not being very powerful, so to clarify what I was saying earlier, originally the what we would know as bonfires in Dark Souls games, where you save and reset your, like, when you interact with a bonfire, it resets all the monsters. It's where you get stronger, and it's like your saving points. That was the owl statues.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So all the owl statues were your saving points and your resets, and you would die and go back to the owl statue and have to get your masks again, and you would go back to day one.
Oh, yeah.
And the idea is, instead of, which Nintendo apparently had said no too harshly, which I understand, to go back in time originally you had to die.
Oh, woof.
So
That's
you'd have to like
brutal.
do stuff on day 3 and be like, all right, and like kill yourself, and you wait. Yeah, exactly. Go back. You're back at day 1 now.
Thankfully, they had a mechanic already built into the game for this.
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time.
So it's like they just decided to do that.
It's like, geez, dude, make it magic. God.
Yeah, I could easily figure out. I could easily see the idea being that the Ocarina of Time didn't work in Terminas, similar to Majora's Mask not working in Hyrule.
Yeah.
That could have been a very easy fix to that explanation.
But technically, again, there's a tiny bit of Majora's power that leaks through, even in
Yeah,
Hyrule, 'cause those eyes glow.
it says that it was too dark. He was in a very depressive state and decided to not go forward with his dark ideas. Nintendo stopped him.
Well, it was still a dark game anyway.
Yeah, you can tell there's some depression in the making of this game, for sure.
Oh, God, yeah. Especially the whole butler and his son, the Deku butler and his son. That is one of the saddest fucking things ever. Like, all of a sudden, the Deku butler's son, for those who don't know, one day goes missing. And the Deku butler just has a duty to the Deku king, and he can't really leave his side, so he never has the chance to go looking for his son. So he's basically standing by the Deku king's side, scared shitless where his son is. Well, his son got his soul painfully sucked out by Majora's Mask and turned and put into Link. And then the dead husk of his son can be found at the very beginning of the game as you're trudging through the underground.
It's just a little tree, right? A little tree sprout.
He's a little tree sprout that's in the underground. Because apparently, the theory and this might actually be canon now, is that the Deku Tree butler's son was a little bit of a loner and would sometimes go to that underpass to be alone. And that basically the Skull Kid and Majora's Mask just found him there as he was sitting there, like, because he wanted to be with his dad. Because, he wanted to spend time with his dad, but he couldn't. Because his dad had duties at the Deku Butler, so he would always go sad.
And also, I think the first time he talked to him, doesn't he say you look familiar?
Yes. He goes like, yeah. He literally says that you look familiar to him. He's just like, and then he says and then after you beat the Woodfall Temple and you do the race with him to get the pig mask, he says, man, you remind me of my son. This is what my son and I used to do, and I can't find him. If you find him, let me know. And then that's if you already saw his son at that point. So if you put two and two together, you can go, ooh, like, so yeah. Because it's also because it's surmised that Majora basically killed all of the people you know.
So that's a picture of his son.
Yeah. Oh God, it's so cute. Look at him.
Yes, that's why Link looks like that. Link has that same face.
Yeah.
This is a picture of what you find.
Oh God.
This is him after he becomes your mask. You just find that planted in the ground, and you see that little face on it.
Yeah, it is very sad. Like, and but the soul is set free. Don't worry. After you win, all these souls are set free because all of their they're all reunited once again. The whole and that's you as Deku Link. So
looking sad.
Looking sad. It's Majora's Mask is depressing. And as a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old, I ate that shit up.
Also, very much a product of its time because it came out in a time period where edgy was what people wanted. It was in the media to be darker and edgier, and we were like, we're not little kids anymore playing with fairies in the woods.
Kinda, yeah, it was.
So it kind of fit that attitude.
Which came back later with Twilight Princess, because that was when we were in our high school emo.
100%.
But anyway, thank you all for listening to my Majora's Mask rant. I love this game so much. If there's any game I recommend, it's this one. If you can look past the clunky old mechanics.
As you're the Zelda expert, is this your favorite Zelda game?
Yes, this is my favorite Zelda game of all time. I think, I still think maybe it's unparalleled in terms of storytelling. I think that the characters in this game, you can absolutely fall in love with even the smaller things, and they have even the small interactions that you have with some of these characters have such weight and depth to them, and so many different dimensions, and then I fall in love with. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think Twilight Princess, Skyward Sword, and Wind Waker have some of the best characters as well. Like we were talking about Tetra earlier, so awesome. And then I'm excited to play Breath of the Wild because I know there's voice acting in that one. And I'm very excited to meet all the new characters that I've met in the last 4 years.
If by voice acting you've been hearing Link over and over again sometimes, that's about it. So don't get too hyped on that.
But that's more than they had before.
No, very true. One day we'll get a Pokemon voice acting.
Yeah, exactly.
One day.
I do need to get Hyrule Warriors and Age of Calamity too. So I do need to get those ones as well. But soon enough, I'll have some money coming my way. Hopefully, I get that big old paycheck right early, fresh in the morning. I gotta
You
go to
brought
work,
those
first
up,
thing.
but you didn't bring up Breath of the Wild. You have to get that
What do you
too.
mean? I know. Well, yeah, I said that.
Oh, you just said Hyrule Warriors and Age of Calamity.
Well, I just thought that was included on too.
Yeah, it's in there. That's the Zelda games on Switch. Yeah.
Yeah. I need to get all the Zelda games on Switch. I'll get the HD remake of Skyward Sword too.
Fuck it, man. Do a live.
Actually, there's a lot of lore that they dropped in the HD remakes. In Twilight Princess, in the HD remake, they have scriptures on the wall that represent different time periods, including Ocarina of Time and not A Link to the Past. Sorry, and I believe Skyward Sword. So so there's references to like the old birds, and there's references to like when in Twilight Princess the Ukus, you go up into the sky level. Apparently, there's more references to Skyward Sword in that one. So, all right. Well, anyway, I think that's it. So thank you guys so much for listening. This is one of my favorite episodes that we've done so far. So see you next week.